Hey folks, Chris the Elder from the Weez Talkin' Weez to Thee and Blue Album Battle podcast, coming back at you here with a guitar lesson for the new Weezer single, Hero. When I heard this the other day, I thought, that's a pretty quality song with some really quality guitar work. So I figured it was worthy of a little guitar lesson video and breakdown. So this song's in standard tuning, key of D. Let's get started right at the top by listening to a little bit of the intro. Let's start with the rhythm guitar. We're in the key of D, as I said, and our first chord is a D5 or D power chord. So we're going to go from D to A5. Then we're going to do that same motion, basically, but up a whole step. E to B5. So that's 1, 5, 2, 6. In the key of D, and just moving around up a fifth or down a fourth, however you want to look at it, that's very common motion for Rivers to use. The second half of that intro goes D, then to the 4 chord G, before returning to A, which brings us back to D. Okay, the first lead guitar part that happens over that progression is going to be centered here around the 7th fret in the key of D. Some people could think of that as the B natural minor scale, or Aeolian mode if you want to be fancy. But really we're just focused on these 5 notes right here in the middle. We're focused on D, E, F sharp, G, and A. So the part starts here on the D on the 7th fret of the G, before going down to 7th fret of the B, and then skipping back to 9th fret of the G. Now we follow that same exact pattern, but we're starting on E, jumping up to G, and then down to F sharp. And now we're just going to spend a lot of time on A here at the 10th fret. We're going to go, and then we walk down before returning to D. At which point, we have that crazy pentatonic line that I love so much. And that pentatonic line, and pentatonic is just a 5-note scale. A lot of people think of it as the blues scale, but really it's just kind of a reduced major or minor scale. So this one I always think of as B minor pentatonic. Okay, so that part just goes like this. It starts on the 10th fret with your pinky, and we do pull-offs going down through the scale. 10-7, 10-7, 9-7, and then we turn back around and take it from the B string. 10-7, 9-7, 9-7, 9-7, 10, and that's D right there that we're ending on. It's simple conceptually, not that it's easy to play up to speed. I think I got lucky there. And then there's this third guitar part. It's basically a harmonized guitar part with the lead. And it's pretty simple, but there's an interesting little wrinkle that Rivers uses here. Or Brian, I don't know who's playing it. But I'm sure Rivers probably wrote it. So that part is starting on 7, and then the lead guitar would go up to the F sharp here on the 7th fret of the B string, but we're going to stay put here in the second lead guitar part right here on 7, and it's going to go, and then stay there down to 6. Now that's an interesting thing. You would think that when the lead guitar went to 9, our second guitar part would want to go down to the 6 to kind of get out of the way and create this nice harmony. But what happens is that second guitar part kind of suspends itself, creating a tension before releasing. So it's going to ride out that 7 longer than you would think. 7, 6, and then the same principle here. 9, 9, 7, and then 11, which is the F sharp of the key. I just figured let's do this all along the same string. It has this kind of bright sound to it as opposed to playing through different strings. I like the thickness and brightness of the G string. So now we're here at the 11, down to 4, 6, 7, and that gets us into the verse.
When I was a kid, I thought I'd save the world. And chasing all the criminals, swinging on a web, flying in the sky, shooting lasers from
So the verses are just classic Weezer power pop. We start on a D5 or D power chord. We hit it twice before taking our first finger and just moving it back 1 fret. This is a little inverted chord called A/C sharp, but really it's just a D chord with your first finger back a fret. And then we go down to a B5 on the 2nd fret, before completing the walk down by ending at A5, as I'm just playing it open. You could play it here at the 5th fret as well of the E string, but I just assume keep it all on the A string. And then this is my favorite part of the verse. And that takes us back to the first chord again. So that's just a little walk up. We start on B5 for just a quick hit, and then we're just alternating the open A string between each of these different notes. We're going B, A, C sharp, A, D, A, E, A, boom. And that's just walking up the scale, leading back to D. Pretty simple, actually. Now the pre-chorus is nice. It starts on a B minor. The first pre-chorus is pretty straightforward, just kind of building and walking up through B5, A/C sharp, D5, and then we get to E5. And that gets us into the chorus. I want to take a moment though to talk about pre-chorus 2, which is a really cool variation on that progression. So what happens in pre-chorus 2 is, well, let's hear it first.
Disappear like I don't exist. And on the inside, I know it won't last. On the inside, I'm an outcast.
So you can see that's a lot more involved than what happens in pre-chorus 1, but it's really simple in concept, okay? So we're still starting on a B, but instead of playing a power chord and building, we're just doing this little 3-note figure, B, C sharp, D. So we're in the key of D still, but we're just starting on B, moving up to D. And we just do that repeatedly to start. And you can see I'm palm muting down here by just resting my hand by the bridge, just to get that tight kind of metally sound. Then we just move that idea up a whole step to C sharp, and we're going to go 4th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, which is C sharp, D, and E. And you can see those are just 8th notes. It's pretty simple rhythmically. Now it gets a little more complex rhythmically. Now we're going to be going D, E, F sharp on the 5th, 7th, and 9th fret. Now you could do this as well, going 5, 7, and 4 here, but just because of the nature of the palm muting, I find it easier to stay on one string. So what happens there is we kick up the rhythm a little bit, and now we're playing some 16th notes. So we're going to start going. And then we move that up to E, and we'll go 7th fret, 9th fret, 10th fret. So conceptually very simple. We're in the key of D, we're on the A string, we're playing 3 notes at a time. But just to be tight and rhythmic and precise with all the rhythms happening, that's kind of the trick of that part. And that takes us into the chorus.
Well, everybody needs a hero, but I'm not everybody else. I walk alone. Yeah, I walk alone. Yeah, I walk alone. Yeah. You know I tried to be your hero, but I was lying to myself. I walk alone. Yeah, I walk alone. Yeah, I walk alone. Yeah.
Okay, so you see 2 primary guitar parts happening there in the chorus. Let's start with the rhythm guitar part. We're starting on the 1 chord, which is D again, before moving to the 3 chord, F sharp, and this is still just a power chord. Then we take that and go to the B power chord, before passing through that A/C sharp again, and going back to D. That's the progression. D, F sharp, B, pass through the C sharp, back to D. And if that seems familiar to you, think of Buddy Holly, right? Different key, but watch this. It's just classic Rivers stuff. It's just stuff he's really comfortable with and stuff that he knows works, and it does. Now on top of the chords, we have a simple walk down through D major, starting in the high E string 10th fret. And this puts us back in that B natural minor space that we were in earlier. Very simple fingering here. We're going to go 10th fret, 9th fret, 7th fret, and then grab 10th fret on the B string. You can either use your third finger for that, so your pinky's free to jump back down to the E string when we repeat, or just use your pinky and just roll it down. It works either way. That goes 3 times before hanging out on A, right there, 10th fret of the B string, which takes us back to the verse. Now, verse 2 is more or less identical to verse 1. There's a little bit of guitar noodling happening, but there's one thing that I really want to point out. That part I love so much where there's the walk up from B back up to D is harmonized by a second guitar a third above. So instead of starting on B, this second guitar is going to start on D, and it does this. It's still in the key of D, but it's just following up the same kind of relationship, but starting on D instead of B. That's just a great little part. I mean, it's simple, it's elegant, but it adds a little bit of intrigue on a repeat, and it kind of justifies the repeat, which is otherwise basically wholesale the same as verse 1 besides the lyrics. Then we get into chorus 2, which is absolutely identical, before getting into the bridge. Now, the bridge is just the intro again, but then there's the guitar solo. I gotta admit, that's right on the brink of my ability. I'm not really that kind of guitarist who can shred like that. Rivers Cuomo, obviously, that's right in his comfort zone. But I'm gonna teach it just the same. So here's what's happening there. Just a collection of pull-offs. This is very much of that metal style, that 80s hair style. This is happening up at the 10th fret with some big old stretches. So let's start on the first one. We're gonna do a pull-off from 14 with our pinky down to 10 with our first finger. And then we're gonna do that same pull-off on the B string. So we're going back and forth between the E and the B string. Just like that, right? Easy. And that happens over the first 2 chords, so it happens for quite a while, and I think you kind of have to use your pinky there. It's just a little bit wide for your third finger, which I'm sure is a more comfortable finger to use for intense guitar stuff. Then we take it from the 10th fret and move our first finger up to the 12th fret. And what we do there, it's a little closer. This is more of like a standard pentatonic kind of pull-off. We're going to go 15 to 12 on both strings. And then when we go to the B minor chord, we're just going to take that first 15 and move it down to 14. Why? Because that's an F sharp. And if we think of like a B chord, F sharp is the 5th. So we want to harmonize that note instead of adding a G where it doesn't belong. So there we just go down. Same idea, but 14, 12, 15, 12. Now we're back on a D chord, and what we do here is move up now where our first finger is in the 14th position, on the 14th fret. And our pinky's going to be up on 17, and we're going to pull that off. And then our middle finger is going to be on 15th fret, pulling off to 14th on the B. So we'll go. After that, we're on a G chord. So now we're harmonizing a G. Our pinky's going to be way up on the 19th fret, and we're going to pull off down to the 15th fret. Seems like a wide gap, but actually the frets are closer, so it's a little easier to play. So we'll do 19 to 15, and then our middle finger is going to come in and play 17 to 15 on the B string. Okay, remember that shape, because now we're taking that wholesale and moving it up 2 frets. Now we're on the outer reaches of a Stratocaster, which has 22 frets, and we're up at the 21st fret. Same idea, 21 down to 17, and then 19 down to 17. And then we end on the high D, which, conveniently enough, that's the last note. So that's fun. That's a pretty good workout for your hand right there. I know it definitely tested me. So that takes us up to the last chorus, where there's a slight chordal variation that I want to point out. So the other 2 choruses went D5 to F sharp 5, right, as the first 2 chords. The last chorus, where it kind of starts slow and it's ringing out, it starts on D5, but instead of going to an F sharp power chord, it's actually going to go to one of those inverted kind of chords, and it's going to D/F sharp. So it's 2nd fret and 5th fret. I don't know why they decided to vary it like that. It clearly is a power chord every other place, but that just stood out to me that he's kind of just making his way up through a D chord. Then we go back to B, A/C sharp, back to D. That's pretty straightforward. So last thing I want to point out is this lead guitar part that happens on the final repeat of the chorus. And it's really high and it's pretty buried in the mix, but it really brings us to the climax of the song and releases into the final D chord really well. So this just is all on the high E string. It starts on the 14th fret and then goes up to the 17th fret. You can play this all with one finger. It's like the easiest part ever. And then we go to the 19th fret before going to the 21st fret, and then ending on the 22nd fret, the high D of the guitar. And that brings us to the close. So there you have it. That's how you play Hero by Weezer on guitar. I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope that it made sense. If there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments down below. I always read them and I'm happy to respond. I've also put a link to the tab that I wrote out in the description down below. Feel free to download that. It's just in a Google Drive and it's free. And if it can help you out, by all means. Anyone interested in guitar lessons? I'm doing a lot of online teaching these days while I can't leave the house and be in a room with my typical students. But that's what I do for a living, and if anyone's interested in learning some more guitar, Weezer or otherwise, please shoot me an email in the description down below as well. I'm happy to talk about that. Tune into the podcast, Weez Talking Weez to Thee and the Blue Album Battle for all your Weezer content needs. And speaking of Weezer content, I'm sorry it's been so long since I've done a video. I do want to do more videos, and I do have some more time to do videos. So if there's a particular song or concept that you want me to talk about, leave it in the comments down below. I always read them, and I'm always looking for new ideas. So if you like this, subscribe, and stay tuned for some more content coming soon.